It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to Musical Lyrical Lingo. We're your hosts, Tim
and LJ. Today and every week we will be discussing musicals, but specifically what they taught us.
We're back after a little week's rest.
A wee half-term break.
Half-term break, rest and relaxation.
Oh.
I am also a little bit bummed for some rare reason.
Well, you've got the cold.
I know, but you would think having had a week off.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't be bummed with the cold because normally like colds come like at the beginning of holidays, but I had it all last week and it's just continuing.
It's because your body knew you were getting a little bit of a break and then it was like, I'm going to make you sick now.
Yeah, I mean, it's low level sickness. It's just like runny nose.
Well, you don't sound too bad.
No, I think it makes me sound like husky.
Sexy.
No, I would never say that about myself, but it makes me sound husky and
attractive.
No. You're putting all these words. No.
Putting these words in my mouth. I don't like it.
No.
We have not got our handheld mics today, so I feel a bit weird.
It does feel bizarre,
I feel like
doesn't
doing
it?
like the hand clap or something.
I think, yeah, you do miss it a bit. Because I think we're used to, like, singing a wee song and, like, karaoke and all the rest of it.
Speaking of that,
got karaoke.
Got a new app on our TV. And it is, I'm sure loads of people use it. It's like called Roxy. Have you heard of it?
No.
Well, you can play music quizzes on it. But there's also karaoke, and not just standard karaoke. There's musical karaoke.
As in musical theatre karaoke?
As in musical theatre. Now, there's not a huge range, but yes, there is Hamilton. And yes, my daughter and I did spend majority of Saturday night practicing Yorktown from Hamilton, and we have nailed it. So if anybody goes sick, I'm a particularly good Hercules Mulligan. So if anybody is ill, I can do it. I can do it.
Well done. I'm glad to know that's how you spent your half term. Is it ROXY or
ROXI?
I see. I just knew there was going to be something about it.
But I can't wait until we have a little gathering at my house and we get the karaoke on.
But like, you have to pay me an awful lot of money to perform these days.
I'll just, make you. Blackmail
you. Like you make me do most things with this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm only joking, yeah. I do actually, that brings it on nicely. I was thinking on my way over here, have I been quite forceful this season? Because I'm kind of like, I'm quite excited by the musical we're doing today because it's another one of my favourites. Yeah. And then I've been looking back and thinking back on the shows that we have done this season. Yeah. And there have been a lot of my favourites, like Wild Party, Sweeney Todd, and I'm going, am I being a bit forceful and going, I think we should do this one next?
No, I think it's just kind of how season 2 has gone.
Okay,
it's just...
Because it does like happen, in my head it happens quite naturally. What will we do next? Actually, we'll try this one or... Like, it's not like, that's okay, I'm glad.
But I love this musical that we're talking about as well.
That's okay. So... I'm glad I just kind of went, here we're doing another one of my faves. There's going to be none left.
It's the Tim Show.
Season 3 shows, I were like, boring. Because we've done all the really good ones, in my opinion, this season. No, there's plenty more to go
we
around.
Still, actually, tonight I was like thinking about, again, some of the big major musicals that we haven't even touched, haven't even probably mentioned.
Well, you've just mentioned one of them.
Well, I know. That is one that we will do.
That scares the life out of me.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we move on to this week's musical then?
Let's
So what are we doing? What's another one of my favourites, Lauren, that you also like? Parade. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think Parade does have a name.
Yes.
Like, I think it is recognised within the world of musical theatre, but then I also don't think it's recognised because you don't see it very often.
Yes, and
or
I
you
think
hear of it very much.
I suppose we're talking about it now in 2024, and there was the revival last year. So I would say maybe if we had have done this last year, maybe towards the very beginning of the pod, maybe people wouldn't have known about it as much. So I think maybe that new revival, we obviously have spoken about it on the pod because we got to talk to lovely Zoe briefly about it.
And she was in the Donmar Warehouse
in
production
2007.
And that was the first time I came to it, and I only came to it because this is the show that Zoe's in. Do you know what I mean? And I fell in love with it from that moment. I've never seen it on stage, and I would love to see it on stage, but it's another one of those ones when you listen to the cast recording, particularly in my opinion, the Donmar Warehouse cast recording. See, I think it's the best one out there.
This is why
genuinely
similar, because I love the new the 2023 with Ben Platt, like which we'll mention, the Broadway
revival,
one. I love the original, but I think for a musical that you haven't seen on stage, you need to listen to the 2007 Donmar one because there's it's not just the songs, there's a bit of the story in it,
the drama,
and you get a really good understanding of what the story is about, how they're feeling at different points of the play, and
that cast were
outstanding,
sublime. I haven't used that word very much this season, but were sublime in the storytelling and conveying their emotions and the story through your ears. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, shall we talk about it?
Yes.
So, Parade, music with book by Alfred Ury, I think. And music and lyrics by Jason Robert Brown.
Beautiful.
The music is a dramatisation of the 1913 trial and imprisonment and the 1915 lynching of Jewish American Leo Frank in Georgia. Leo Frank was a Jewish factory manager who was tried and convicted of raping and murdering a 13-year-old employee, Mary Fagan. The trial was sensationalised by the media and it aroused a lot of anti-Semitic tensions in Atlanta, in the US state of Georgia.
That's right. I just was going to go back and talk about Jason Robert Brown because he is a fantastic composer, and he was inspired by Sweeney Todd and Sunday in the Park. They sort of helped him write, which is really cool that we've just done Sweeney Todd and then we're doing Parade. And he said that if he hadn't have discovered Sweeney Todd and Sunday in the Park, he probably would have joined a rock band.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I know. So that is what made him go into musical theatre.
Oh, wow. This show was Jason Robert Brown's first Broadway production. And they say that his music is a wonderful mix of subtle and appealing melodies that draw on a variety of influences from pop rock, as you've just said, to folk, to rhythm, blues and gospel, all within this one show. Yeah,
and he also, his style of writing, so he did 13.
Yes.
Which I love that musical. I think it's great.
I just don't want to watch a bunch of 13-year-olds.
Okay, well, I think it's great.
You're a mummy.
Yeah. Bridges of Madison County, which some say is his best. He did music for Mr. Saturday Night, Midnight. He's currently working, I think, still on a production of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. And then one which maybe people would know him for is The Last 5 Years, which is about his breakup. So it's kind of
semi-autobiographical.
That word.
Biographical.
But also he was introduced to Parade because Sondheim turned it down.
That's right, yeah. Exactly.
It's Hal Prince, who we know again from Sweeney Todd. So Hal Prince was introduced to Brown by his daughter, was a fan of his work, and then as Sondheim had turned it down, they turned to Jason Robert Brown. And then another connection where I just love learning more about everything is the fact that Alfred, who wrote the book, book. Sorry, he grew up in Atlanta, knew the story very well, and it was his uncle who owned the pencil factory that Leo Frank worked in.
Yeah. So when Frank's death, he was found. Leo Frank was found guilty of this rape and murder, and was committed. He was given the death sentence, but it was then commuted to life in prison by the departing governor of Georgia at that time, John M. Slayton, in 1915, due to his detailed review of over 10,000 pages of testimony and possible problems with the original trial.
Yeah.
Leo Frank was then transferred to a prison in Milledgeville, Georgia, I think I've said that right, where a lynching party seized and kidnapped him. And Frank was taken to Mary Fagan's hometown of Marietta in Georgia, where he was hung from an oak tree.
He was. It's very sad.
It's unbelievable. And here we are again talking about another musical which is based upon a historical event, you know, and that's my first musical lyrical lingo.
Yeah.
I was not aware when I first listened to it, even after the 10th time of listening to it, that this was a real story, which makes it even more like crazy. Now, the musical story concludes that the likely killer was actually the factory's janitor, Jim Conley, and he was a key witness against Frank at trial. And the villains of the piece in the musical are the ambitious and corrupt prosecutor Hugh Dorsey, who later became the governor of Georgia and then became a judge, and also the
Judge Rowan.
Yeah, and the very anti-Semitic publisher, Tom Watson, as well. And he played a big role in kind of the media hype and turning...
The power of media, sort of, and how then his song, Big News, or... So it's about how he is going to use this trial to launch his name.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah. The case was opened in 2019.
Oh,
and
was
it's
it?
Still ongoing.
Really? I didn't know that now.
Yeah. So.
It's just such a wild story, but but at the same time, you're not surprised, like, you know.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Love the catchy tunes and insightful discussions on musical lyrical lingo? Why would you not? Now you can reap your fandom. Ooh, we've got fans. And show off your love of all things musical theatre with our exclusive merchandise. Ooh.
From comfy tees,
t-shirts,
mugs to stylish tote bags, we have something for every fan. Our designs are inspired by the show's iconic themes.
Because we are so iconic.
And featured playful quotes, alpha, ba, and graphics that will have you humming along.
I will never work again.
Wherever you go.
So head over to our merch store now and start shopping. Spend your money, people. And don't forget to share your pics on our social media using #PodcastMusicalLyricalLingoMerch. We love to see our fans rocking our gear.
Yes, we do. Happy shopping. I know it's hard that, like, what was this, 1913?
Yeah.
To 1915. I know that was a long time ago, but it still doesn't seem that long ago that something like this happened, and that it literally is one person's word against another, because where Mary Fagan was found was in the factory. Also, I think, this was just my interpretation of it, Leo Frank seemed like, maybe nowadays we would say he was autistic. Where he's counting his... He's wanting to be superintendent, or he is superintendent. He
also wasn't very comfortable in his new surroundings in Georgia. He didn't feel he belonged. He fitted in. So he kind of kept himself to himself, because he was just like, and one of his first songs is all about that. Like, I don't fit.
No, and I think whenever the police first arrested him on suspicion of this, because obviously it happened in his factory, that he wasn't very, like, I don't know, there was a disjointed like reaction because he was like, I didn't do it, you know, and was very matter of fact. Well, suppose like maybe if he was autistic, then maybe that would be hard for him to relate to something.
Yeah, to get his head round. How could you possibly be accusing me? Yeah. I also think it was very telling of the time that the two main suspects, one was Leo Frank, a Jewish man, and the other was Newt Lee, you know, a black man. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of both that anti-Semitic kind of content and racial stuff throughout this musical and within the musical numbers. Also, Harold Prince and Uri wanted to emphasize the relationship between Frank and his wife Lucille throughout the musical too. So it wasn't just about, you know, the crime and the trial and, you know, the equality issues that I've just mentioned. It was also that relationship between Frank and his wife. Their relationship shifts from being quite cold, and as you said, like kind of, you know, Leo Frank was a bit standoffish, like, well, even with his wife.
I've got to go to work. I've got to do this, and she's like, "Let's go for a picnic."
Yeah, at the beginning, and then to a warm and loving, you know, relationship. And I think the poignancy of the couple who fell in love in the midst of their adversity is at the core of the musical, but it also makes the tragic outcome, that miscarriage of justice at the end, even more disturbing.
Yeah, I think throughout that, when you see that relationship and you believe that they do love each other and that they would do anything for each other, and she certainly, you know, goes out of her way to try and prove his innocence, it is so loving, and like it shows that there is hope no matter what situation you're faced with. It doesn't always become a really happy, let's skip off into the sunset type ending, but there's still hope no matter what. You know, and she always had hope.
Well, that's it. Even after him going, just go home, Lucille, like you can't help me here, there's nothing, what are you gonna do? He even says that, doesn't he? Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to make this better?
She shows him that
you know, she doesn't stop. She's got grit. Two fantastic characters. Do you know what I mean?
Very good.
The musical premiered in Broadway in December 1998 and ended its limited run on the 28th of February 1999 after 39 previews and 85 regular performances. It won 2 Tony Awards for Best Book and Best Original Score out of their 9 nominations. So well done, Jason Robert Brown.
Well done him.
For his first music Broadway production, like. After closing in Broadway, the show had a US national tour. It seemed to be a much more like US national toury kind of show. And then, as we've already said, it had its first major production in the UK, playing at the Donmar Warehouse from September the 24th to November the 24th in 2007. Directed by Rob Ashford, as our friend Zoe told us. Go back and listen to that episode again. It starred Lara Pulver as Lucille and Bertie Carvel as Leo.
And I think that match was beautiful.
Yeah. Also, 2 local actresses. We had Jane Weisner from here as Mary. I didn't realise she was Mary Fagan until I was doing the research again.
Same.
And then our wonderful friend Zoe, who was also in it. Both Pulver and Carvel were nominated for an Olivier Award. And there was also a fantastic cast recording of that production that I would urge everybody to go and listen to.
Go onto YouTube and it's there and just listen, and it's great because you get a really deep understanding of these characters, and I think the way Bertie plays it is lovely.
He is unbelievable. And as far as I'm aware, and I think Zoe told us this too, that was his first musical.
Yes.
He had done a lot of plays, but I think that's what was so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this, in my opinion, is the best cast recording, because he came at it.
Yes.
Not as a singer, as an actor who just so happens to have a decent voice.
Yeah.
But, you know, at times, and I'm a big fan of Ben Platt, but preparing for this episode, I listened to the Donmar Warehouse one first. And then I was like, I'm going to go and listen to the, you know, the Broadway revival. And there's no comparison. There was almost a disconnect in my head with the Broadway one because you were missing that angst that you could hear from Bertie. Like, he's absolutely stunning.
That's why I at the beginning I said play. Because I feel like the Donmar one is more of a play.
Yeah.
And I think, even though Aaron thinks she's very attractive, I think that she is beautiful. Her voice is beautiful in that too.
Lara. Is Aaron a fan of
Aaron
Lara
is a fan
Pulver?
I really thought that their relationship comes through in that cast recording as well.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think that her name has escaped me. The girl that played it with Ben Platt.
It's Michaela Diamond.
That's it. Michaela Diamond. I think she did a very good.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. That 2023 Broadway revival is great, and it is a great cast recording. It was also nominated for 6 Tony Awards, winning 2 for Best Director, Michael Arden, and Best Revival of a Musical. So 2 really, you know, successful. But just for me, I can't get past the rawness and the emotion that's in that Donmar Warehouse cast recording. It could be also because it was the first time I'd heard it. Do you know what I mean?
Could be, yes. You've got a bit of connection to it.
Yeah, I heard it first before I then went and listened to the original Broadway cast recording. Do you know what I mean? But it's still my favourite.
No, but people do say that the that 2007 production, there is a more of a focused and impactful presentation from how it was all done. And I think so we spoke about it as well, about how it's in a small theatre.
Yes.
And there was a buzz around it. And she says, even now people would still talk to her about it. And I think, is that amazing to be part of?
I know.
Magic.
It's one of those musicals or productions that you regret not having seen. I really wish I'd seen that, you know, at the time. Do you have productions like that? Is there a production in your head where you're like, oh, I totally missed out in seeing that?
No. No, I don't.
That's nice. That's a nice place to be in.
Don't get me wrong. I'd probably be like, okay, that would have been nice. But I don't regret. Not
It's the feeling I would have had if I hadn't seen Imelda Staunton as in Hello Dolly. I kind of go, oh, I really wish I'd seen, you know, Bertie and Lara in that.
Well, yeah, there was a lot there around it. It's a good.
But that's what, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I was so excited for this episode. I haven't even started the musical lingos.
Well, apart from learning that it was a true story.
True story.
My also learning was about the parade. Yeah, and the reason why it's called Parade.
So talk about parades. Yeah, because it starts with a parade or getting ready for a parade, doesn't it?
No, it starts with the Old Red Hills of Home, which is a song, and then it goes into the parade.
So
Mary Fagan was killed in 1913 during the Confederate Memorial Day parade in Georgia. And the Confederate Memorial Day is a holiday observed in the southern US states, originally publicly presented as a day to remember the estimated 258,000 Confederate soldiers who died during the American Civil War. So I didn't know that was something that happened.
Yeah.
And is the Confederates, were they baddies or goodies? I don't really understand America Civil War.
They didn't win.
They didn't win.
They didn't win.
Okay.
Yes, because Leo makes comment to that.
Right, yes.
That's in one of my musical lyrical lingos that I have maybe over a couple of pages. He can't understand why they're having a parade and celebrating honorees who didn't win.
Yes, I just get very confused about American history, but obviously it's not a history that we learn.
Laura and I get confused about history, full stop. I'm glad you took that musical lyrical lingo. I learnt, obviously we now know from the story that Leo Frank basically was lynched and was killed. Yeah. And I didn't realise that's what lynchings were.
Right, okay.
And they were a widespread occurrence. Which began in the US in 1930s, slowed down during civil rights movement in 1950, 1960, and then continued until 1981. Lynchings in the US reached their height from 1890s to 1920s, and their primary victims were often ethnic minorities.
Because also I read somewhere, and I'm not 100% true, but apparently this case did start up the KKK again.
It reignited that
like a
organisation
sort of,
again. Yeah, it did.
Because of what had happened to Leo. So.
Yeah, the injustice of it kind of like kick-started that again.
Which isn't great.
The first song they sing is called The Old Red Hills of Home.
Yeah. Lovely song. A wee bit similar to... in my eyes, a wee song I was singing earlier from Calamity.
Black Hills of Dakota. Don't you ever say that ever again. If you want to go back to season 1 and listen to our Calamity Jane episode again, you'll all remember how I feel about the Black Hills of Dakota. And I certainly do not feel the same way about the Old Red Hills of Home. No. I can't believe you'd even, just because there's hills in the title.
That's it.
So the the Red Hills region is actually an official geographic region of Georgia and Florida, originally settled by Paleo Indians. The region is referred to in Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
He says, I have a dream that one day on the Red Hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood.
Lovely. So it opens just as a soldier is going off to the war. So it doesn't open in 1913. And that's what I learned as well, just like that nostalgia. The Old Red Hills of Home means the deep emotional connection to nostalgia for one's homeland. Marietta in Georgia, during the time of the Civil War, the hills are to represent sacrifices, longing for the past, and pride in one's heritage. And that is something that you can tell from the parade. Then reasons why they do that.
So it's got a kind of double meaning because there is actually the region called the Red Hills.
The rushing of the Chattahoochee.
2 wee seconds on the Old Red Hills.
No,
interesting fact. No, I know, but on the Old Red Hills.
So the actual Red Hills.
Yeah. The things I learned when researching this, honest to goodness, like I felt like I was thrown back into the case.
Oh, were you?
Honest to goodness, I thought it was a detective.
Oh, I thought it was hills, and you were like,
honest to goodness, no, like the things I learnt. But actually, the Old Red Hills are also mentioned on Mary Fagan's tombstone.
Oh,
which resides in Marietta. I told you. I think I'm going to blow your mind. Like, Lauren, I think I am going to get a gold star from you today. I really do.
I've done a
It
lot.
reads, in this day of fading ideals and disappearing landmarks, little Mary Fagan's heroism is an heirloom than which there is nothing more precious among the old red hills of Georgia. So that's what it actually says on our tombstone.
See, these people that wrote this musical is very clever.
I think we should go to Georgia.
Okay, let's go. We'll go to Georgia.
So, the rushing of the Chattahoochee. Yeah.
So, it is a river in southeastern USA.
I found out it was just a river making up the Georgia border.
Yeah, so it forms the southern half of Alabama and Georgia border, as well as a portion of the Florida and Georgia border.
There you go.
See, the country's so big. I'm like, what?
And like
how big is that river?
Yeah. And you've certainly explored more of the America than I have. Like, I've been to New York. Whoop, whoop. But yes, I haven't explored it as a country at all, to be quite honest with you.
But yeah, massive. Absolutely massive. And that's a nice word to say. Chattahoochee.
The Chattahoochee?
Chattahoochee.
It's a fun. I mean, who needs the Mississippi when you've got the Chattahoochee? Hoochie.
I like it. The Chattahoochee. The soldier sings, "We'll sing Dixie again."
Yep.
So then I went into a rabbit hole about this. So sometimes known as Dixielands, "I Wish I Was in Dixie" is a song about the southern USA from about 1859. Dixie is also a nickname which came from somebody who is from the southern parts of America. It did originate in the minstrel shows.
Okay.
And was a favourite of Lincoln's, and it played at General Robert Lee's surrender.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we know Robert Lee from Hamilton. If you do karaoke on a Saturday night.
If you're Lauren and you spend 4 hours singing it off Roxy.
So yeah, that's all I learned from the old red hills of home.
Me too. Picture show then.
Yeah, does that come next? Well, anyway.
Well, it's what I have next. What do you have next?
I have How Can I Call This Home?
Go ahead.
So this is Leo, where he's in. I actually think picture show might be next.
It's fine.
No, How Can I Call This Home?
No, I think you're right.
13 hours. He says, how can I call this home? He's talking about how he is a Brooklyn lad, but he's now living in Georgia, and he doesn't feel like he belongs.
Yeah.
So then I was like, how far is it? And it's a 13-hour drive from Brooklyn to Georgia.
Very good.
So I suppose it is a wee bit far.
Interesting. The musical lyrical lingo I got from How Can I Call This Home? I'm just going to leave it out because you've just talked about Dixie. But there's a line that is "La la la in the land o' cotton." And that's actually, that line actually quotes from Dixie with the popular song of the mid to late 19th century that you've just spoken about.
Well, he's listing everything as to how he can't call Georgia home. Yeah. He says, "I don't cuss, I don't drawl." So drawl is a slow or lazy way of speaking.
Yeah.
Is that right?
And cussing saying naughty words.
It is. A southern drawl.
Yeah. The accents are class, aren't they?
Yeah.
The Georgian drawl.
Yeah.
Can I talk about the picture show?
Yes, sorry, because I had picture show next.
So in the picture show, Frankie, who is like a young lad who's basically interested in Mary Fagan, wants to take her to the picture show.
And I thought there was a resemblance from this song to picture show in Bonnie and Clyde.
Or picture show in Oklahoma. That's what Will Parker sang about when he went to Kansas going to the picture show.
I just thought the melody was similar.
Oh, the melody. Right, okay. Fair. Interesting. I'll have to go and have a listen to it. Oh, you're making comparisons left, right and centre. At least that one's not as offensive as the last one. Anyway, Frankie sings, "You know the one called The Silver Gun? Well, I've been watching since chapter 3.
Yes.
So the Silver Plated Gun was a 1913 movie about the struggles between a robber on the run and the sheriff chasing him. And that kind of bears a striking resemblance to the plot of the rest of this musical, doesn't it? How the town tries to incriminate Leo and that struggle for justice between them. Yeah.
No, it's great. I originally typed it in wrong, and I was researching a film called, and I kept it in because I was like, just shows you need to double check. One called The Silver Whip, which was a 1953 film. And I was like, how did they go and see a film in 1953?
Not quite. He also sings wee Frankie, "I got a book, you wanna look? It's called The Thief and the Brigadier." Now, there isn't actually a book called The Thief and the Brigadier, although Arthur Conan Doyle's short story, The Crime of the Brigadier, does bear a striking resemblance.
How do you know that name? Arthur Conan Doyle.
Because he's a famous author, right?
Yeah, but what did he write? Sherlock
There you
Holmes.
go. Now, it isn't a stretch to assume, though, that Frankie does mean Doyle's work, since he also messes up the title of the movie, The Silver Gun, by leaving out the word plated. So maybe that was just very clever.
Maybe.
Jason Robert Brown.
We'll go with that.
I'm going with that too.
Yep.
Excellent.
In My Child Will Forgive Me.
Oh, don't. I struggle. I mean, I'm not a parent and I struggle to listen to it. I can only imagine.
So that line, poor Mary is dead and terrible things have happened to her and she's found in the basement. But just after the picture show, she goes, I got to go get my pay. And she walks in on Leo and he's counting pencils or whatever. And she's like, I'm here for my pay. And he gives her pay. And that's the last we see of her.
Yeah.
And the next we hear of her here is somebody has been murdered and other terrible things. And they're in the basement of this factory.
Yeah.
And the police are there and people are going, that she's laying there like how was she dragged from all over the place. And then her mum comes in and says, hello, I'm looking for my daughter. She didn't come home. We're like, what's her name?
Yeah.
Mary Fagan. And you just go, oh, because then we then realise, we knew, but it's that girl that was talking about she's not old enough to go to the picture show.
Yeah.
She has to wait 2 years. Her mum won't allow her to go. She was working in this pencil factory for like no money at all. And then she's been murdered.
Yeah.
And she sings the little lavender cotton pansy dress, and that is a type of silk made from satin. Or sorry, it's similar to satin. And I just was like, the fact that she made this little dress for this little girl, and
I know.
so sad.
It is such a sad story.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about Mary Fagan, it's Phagan. If anybody wants to go and do their own research of the case or whatever, don't be typing in gotta pick a pocket or two Fagan.
No.
It's Phagan. In the number Leo at Work / what am I waiting for?
Yeah.
He sings God all the noise and on Yontif yet. And Yontif is a general term for Jewish holiday. And this is the bit where Leo's annoyed that there's a parade going on for a war that the honorees lost, but not for the holiday celebrated by the Jewish community.
Yeah.
Lucille also sings in that number, and she's kind of singing about she can't believe how lucky she is to have met Leo and married Leo, and she had, Leo looks after her and gives her, finer things in life that she's never had before, like a new winter coat with real ermine collar. And I didn't know what that ermine collar was. Do you not know either?
No,
I'm quite surprised. I would have thought you will when I tell you. Ermine is a fur consisting of a white background with a pattern of black shapes representing the winter coat of a stout. So a Me and My Girl, that big royal red cloak with the ermine.
Okay.
Yeah,
very good.
But I didn't know that's what that was called.
Love it.
So there you go. In the number interrogation, I'm trying to remember Newt Lee, who I had said earlier was the other suspect.
Yeah.
He, in his questioning, he sings "This small white body." This is reference to the evidence used against Newt Lee in the real trial of Mary Fagan's death. When the body was discovered, he was able to identify it as Caucasian. However, the police and the detectives deduced that this was suspicious, considering that the corpse was covered in soot and dust from the basement, covering her skin in a dark layer of dirt, and authorities deemed her to be too dirty to identify her race at the time of Newt discovering her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that it's wee things like this that I came across, and you were probably the same as you were researching just how clever Jason Robert Brown was within the lyrics
words,
to take the smallest, as you say, the smallest word or phrase, which then linked into the facts of the real trial. I just thought it was really very clever. He's very clever throughout, like.
And that's what the 2023 production also did as well, where the set design included images of Leo's actual trial.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they tried to make it as authentic as possible.
That's really cool.
And that's, I think, also one of the directorial decisions was, I watched quite a lot on it, was Ben Platt to not go off stage during the interval. He stayed on stage, and that was kind of a life went on.
Okay.
But for Leo, he was just stuck in that cell for 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of another reflection then of everything that was going on.
In Funeral, the number Funeral, there's a fountain or / it don't make sense.
Oh, I love that bit.
They say, I think it's one of the factory girls actually sings, and she knew how to read. And this is a really key point of the trial for Mary Fagan's murder that was left out of the show.
Right.
Because actually in the real trial, 2 notes were found next to Mary Fagan's corpse.
Yes.
These 2 notes aren't mentioned at all.
No.
In the storyline of the musical. But that line, and she knew how to read, is meant as a reference to the fact that she was seemingly competent enough to write notes as she was being killed, right? The notes seem to accuse Newt Lee of murdering her. Actually, Jim Connolly later admitted to writing the notes.
Yeah.
So can we talk about him for a minute?
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Will I keep going?
You keep going.
So Jim Connolly was another black employee at the pencil factory. See, this is when I became a flippin' detective. I was loving life.
Yeah.
And he was the major contributor to the guilty verdict.
Yeah.
In Leo Frank's trial. Connolly's testimony claimed that he found Frank standing over the body, which he then helped to carry down to the basement.
Yes, because everybody couldn't understand if Leo, this was one of the questions, like if Leo did kill and he admits that he's seen her because she came for her pay, why was she dragged all the way down the stairs?
Yeah.
And then just left there? Like if you're going to drag somewhere, you might as well sort of finish it off. But then he was like, no, he made me write it this way. He stood over me. He told me that note wasn't good enough and I had to write another note. And just, even all that, just like,
crazy.
Why are we believing this?
I know.
Seems very bizarre.
It. Now he was Jim Connolly was sentenced to a year in prison as an accomplice. But today, most historians agree that Connolly was the likely culprit of Fagan's murder, a theory that also Frank's legal team kind of fought for. He, in the number, that's what he said, which is Jim Connolly giving his testimony. He sings, "She's a very pretty girl," he said, "Don't let me catch you looking at Miss Mary Perkins." And this is another link or detail from the real trial that Jason Robert Brown put into the musical, because during Connolly's testimony, he got Mary Fagan's name wrong during his examination.
Like,
it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. He also sings, "And so I found me an old gummy sack and wrapped her up." I didn't know what a gummy sack was.
No.
It's basic. I think we would call it a Hessian sack.
Oh, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure if it was like... Yeah.
Or, I don't know, do Americans call them burlap sacks?
Not sure.
They're basically like inexpensive, durable, widely available. I think we call them Hessian sacks.
Yeah, okay.
Here. Do you have any others, or am I rumbling
No,
on?
no. Yeah, no.
Go ahead.
Yeah, keep
Are
going.
you sure?
Yeah, positive.
I'm nearly done, I promise you.
Great.
I know you won't tell no one nothing. Here's $100. He sings. again, in Connolly's real testimony, he stated that Leo Frank bribed him with $200, but then he changed the story with the money, as he did with lots of other things, which you can hear in the musical number Blues, Feel the Rain Fall. Yeah. That's when all of these lies that he kind of told in his testimony start to unravel.
Yeah.
Because at that point in the musical, Lucille has succeeded in getting people to look at the case again and to look at the evidence. In the number, a rumbling and a rolling, and that's like the chain gang, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They sing about they never cared much about folk like us.
Yes.
And that line is sung by a black resident of Atlanta, where black people were being raped and murdered. Nobody really cared. No. But now, all of a sudden, they're making the point that, a white girl, experiences the same thing, and reporters are coming into town by the busload. Yeah, to investigate the crime.
And I also read, just to go back, where, Leo was meant to have bought him off or, bribed him with the money. That, again, was to, play into the fact that Jews have a lot of money and control and will use money as power, So it was his way of saying, well, we know he's Jewish and we know Jews have lots of money. So he... Of course,
he bribed.
Him offering me £200, which kind of then helped fire that. Let's all go against him because he's Jewish.
Yeah. Also, another reference to one of the lyrics to show just how black people were being treated. In A Rumbling and a Rolling, they sing, "There's a black man swinging in every tree." And from 1882 to 1968 this isn't saying, like, this makes me sad that we live in a world that these things did happen like this. So between 1882 to 1968, over 4,500 lynchings took place in the US, with 72.7% of those being African Americans.
Yeah. Horrible.
Interestingly, I don't know if you noticed when you were listening through to it again or looking at the lyrics, how many times a tree was mentioned. The imagery of a tree is mentioned in so many of the songs, just linking in to the final instance, that's the last time, that lyric, "There's a black man swinging in every tree," that's the last time a tree's mentioned before Leo's murder. My last musical lyrical lingo's the last song, which actually makes me cry. Shema. Yeah. So I don't want to offend anybody out there because my pronunciation will not be good. Leo Frank, before he's hung, because he knows what's going to happen to him, sings like an ancient Jewish daily prayer. Go and listen to it because it's so beautiful, isn't it? It's done to the melody, isn't it? It's the melody is a reprise of the old Red Hills of Home, isn't it? Translated into English, it's "Hear Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever." And it's like a silent prayer that Leo sings right before he's hung by the lynch mob. It's really beautiful.
And again, it just shows about his strong faith that right up until the very end. And that's where I know Ben Platt and Michaela Diamond, they were the first Jewish actors and actresses to play those roles, and they felt that was very...
How powerful that must have been for them.
Important for them. And I know that during many of their performances, there was lots of... backlash and protests.
Their first previews, didn't they have like protests out the front of the... It's like, come on.
Very difficult.
Going back to our chat when we did Jesus Christ Superstar, like, why are things like that still happening?
I know. So, Yeah.
I think that prayer at the end also like highlights Leo Frank right to the end. Leo Frank's refusal to assimilate into this Southern society where he knows he's not part of it. He knows they don't want him to be part of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which is another factor, I think, in the turning of the people of Atlanta against him. That's, you know, that kind of like witch hunt against him, you know, that anti-Semitic kind of behaviour.
Yeah.
Heavy. It's heavy.
It is heavy. It is. But I think that's how theatre is magic, where it can bring up a piece of history and make you learn more, and almost it like light a little fire in you, and either want to make a difference or want to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. And I think that if we can learn, you know, I think this is where I really struggle with people wanting to rewrite history. History happened.
Yeah.
And yes, it is mainly written by the heroes and the survivors and things like that. But we need to learn from it and just make sure that we don't repeat.
1000%.
But we can't eliminate
what happened. No. And actually, it's important that musicals like this are made because it does teach people that this did happen.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know that this happened.
No.
You know, I wouldn't have known about it, only I listened to it.
Yeah.
And I think it had the same impact on me. Obviously, I remember listening to it in Queen's Library when I'm supposed to be studying, and I was just listening to the soundtrack from start to finish the whole way through. And it had the same impact on me as seeing Ragtime.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and I will never forget.
Yeah.
When I saw Ragtime, I didn't know what I was going to see, but the stories are similar. We maybe won't go into it because it's probably a musical for another episode. Yeah. But you know, they're equally as powerful on the same kind of level.
It's just the dangers of prejudice,
and you know, those events of history, and you can totally see why there's still issues today because there's just such deep bedded
and I think that's
nonsense that's gone on.
I think when clearly there was a corrupt legal issue going on there, and that then people felt that there wasn't injustice, the fact that he was being moved and wasn't going to be killed for what they believed he was guilty for, so they felt they had to take matters into their own hands. Also that people just didn't listen and just had their own agenda. But also you could understand why maybe people were frustrated, people within the Black community, if things like this were happening all the time
them, and nothing was done.
Children, and nothing was being done about it, then you just not ever making excuses for anything, but can see where frustrations and where people are led to acts.
But the music,
beautiful,
isn't it though? There's so many songs that are just so fantastic. Like, I
love It Just Don't Make Sense.
Yeah.
Like, that little melody is just a wee earworm, it just gets stuck in there, and it's so sad.
Yeah.
So sad. And it's just...
I love All the Wasted Time.
Oh, yeah.
And I also love that gives you bubbly feelings inside. This isn't over yet. Because it's when actually you do think, oh, he's gonna get freed. Like, this is gonna work out. You know, an innocent man is not going to go to jail. I love it. It was like, my rabbi's eulogy can wait, you know. My cousin will get his portion of my estate, and he just goes through everything, and he's just like, at me, I've got somebody fighting for me, I have somebody in my corner, and it's my wife. How lucky am I for her, but to have her. But it's a lot of learning in that musical. But this is the thing, I went into a complete and utter rabbit hole when researching this, because I started to look more at the actual trial, and then from the lyrics she went, oh my goodness, but that's him that's Jason Robert Brown referring to this part of the trial. That's so clever.
I'm so glad they made it.
Yeah. And, you know, in a way, it's nice that Stephen Sondheim did turn it down. So Jason Robert Brown got an opportunity.
I know. Yeah. Could
So
you imagine?
good.
It might have been very different.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you kind of go, Stephen Sondheim's treatment of this music. Like, do you know, he's so, like, Stephen Sondheim's so clever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you go, what would he have done?
Yeah.
Like, what would he have done? No, fantastic.
Yeah, great.
Thank you for agreeing to do this one.
No worries.
It's honestly though, it's
you're totally okay.
It's one of those ones, like, you do remember where you were the first time you heard it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those ones that you listened to on repeat.
And I think that's something about Parade is now that I have been listening to it a lot, preparing for this. I think I will put it aside for a while.
1,000%.
And then probably in a year, 2 years time, I'm going to come back to it and fall in love with it again. But it's definitely not one that I could have every single song on, because it gets in there and you're like, it's so sad.
Yeah. Did you like get more from it, having listened to it after a while of not? Yeah, because I couldn't believe how much more kind of jumped out at me this time round, because it is a good 5-6 years, I think, since I've listened to it.
I obviously listened to the 2023 whenever it came out.
Yes,
but
me
just
too.
once. I just listened to it just
to hear their lovely voices.
Maybe I've listened to Ben Platt singing you know, his what we were just talking about there. That one.
Yes, the one that I can't remember.
For a while.
But
I haven't from start to finish in ages.
Yeah, me too.
But the last couple of weeks it has been in the ears. It's been in the car. And I'm like, okay. And I like it. And I've been humming some of them. But I'm ready to have a little break for a while and then rediscover it again.
Yeah.
So I really hope people...
There's just so many moments
where
you go...
it for the first time.
Yeah.
Because that would be lovely to hear.
Oh, please go and listen to
Go
it. If you've
to
never listened to Parade, listen to the 2007 Donmar Warehouse cast recording.
And listen to it from start to finish. Like,
yes.
You know, start with the first song 1,000%. And work your way through.
Yeah.
And have it on when you can pay full attention to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was... I mean, you say it's lovely. It's so ridiculously heartbreaking. Oh,
yeah.
And you know for a fact, like, if we went to see it in the theatre, we would be absolutely
bawling.
In floods. Yeah. Absolute floods.
Yeah.
Do you know, on a lighter note, do you know what's coming to the Donmar Warehouse early next year?
No.
The Producers.
Is it?
Uh-huh.
Is that where that's going to be?
Yes.
Oh.
I know it's pricked my interest too.
And you know, like, next week is the pre-release or early release of Hercules.
Did you see who's just been cast just today? They've announced who Hercules is going to be.
No, I have missed this.
Luke Brady. So he was Prince of Egypt.
Yes.
Like, best casting. That boy is amazing and his voice is incredible.
Okay. Well,
I literally just read that before coming here to record this episode.
Perfect.
There you go.
There we go.
How many times this season are we going to get back onto Bloom and Hercules?
I mean, if we don't get to go and see this flipping show. Anyway. Yes,
that was lovely.
Yeah, we will be back next week with more upbeat.
A wee bit lighter, a little bit more spice and a bit more...
beans and rice.
Cha-cha-cha. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
not lynchings and mobs and hangings and all the rest of it.
No.
A little bit more.
A little bit more. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will be back in your ears next week.
Yeah.
Till then.
Bye.